Hey everyone, welcome back to Glue La La. If you're new here, my name's Jess. I love seeing all of the fall decorations that are out in the stores now, but I'm not quite ready to decorate my home for fall. So I wanted to create some decor pieces that I can put out now and then easily transition into fall. Alright everyone, let's get started. For the first project, I'm using one of these 8x8 canvases that I got at Michael's, but I wanted to show you that the Dollar Tree also has pieces of wall art that you could use instead. They're just a little bit bigger. So to start, I'm just cutting the canvas off of the frame, but I'm not going to throw it away because I'm actually going to use the canvas in the second project in today's video. But to get started, I just went ahead and cut around the edges, and then I removed as much as I could, and then I went back through and I did remove the staples off of the back of the canvas as well, because I was going to add a backing to this piece, and I knew if the staples were there, it would probably sit just a bit uneven. Next, I don't know about you, but when I use craft sticks, I always keep the scraps because I find that they come in handy. And I ended up having quite a few scraps from these giant craft sticks and the super jumbo craft sticks, and they're kind of long, so I decided to try to use them in this project. The first thing I did was I sorted it out by size, and I ended up using just the thinner ones for this project, and using my paper trimmer, I took all the rounded edges off of each of the sticks. Then I kind of divided the pile of sticks that I had into 4 equal piles. I wasn't exactly sure how many sticks I would need, and I just started painting the different piles different colors. Now the colors that I picked you could use for summer or for fall, and I wanted kind of an orangey color. I showed you there that I used the pumpkin color by Waverly, but I did add just a little bit of red and a little bit of white to it because it wasn't quite the color that I was looking for. And then after I painted it, I did end up going through and wiping it back off with a baby wipe just because I wanted it to be just a little bit more translucent. So that was the first color that I picked, and then I went ahead and I did the same thing with the antique wax, and then I did some of the sticks with a little bit of dry brushing with the plaster color, and then I did a few of the sticks with the agave color by Waverly too. So this is something that you could customize to fit your own decor. These are just the colors that I picked, but obviously you could use any colors you wanted, or you could even just use 1 color or 2 colors. You don't have to use 4, so this is something neat that you can kind of customize to fit your style. To add a little interest to the background of this piece, instead of just laying the sticks down, I wanted to give it a little bit of extra detail by using a stapler. And I'm showing you here that I have the Tim Holtz tiny attacher, and then I also have a regular stapler too, and you can see the difference in the size between the tiny attacher and a regular stapler. So I decided to use my tiny attacher just because I like the look of the smaller staplers. I think they're really cute. And I'll try to link this in the description box below too if you're interested in finding that for yourself. So to get started, the first stick was pretty easy, and I wanted this to be a diagonal background. So I just took one of the sticks that I had prepared and I laid it in the corner of the frame. And by the way, I did stain this frame with the antique wax as well. So then to create the second row, in order to hold those 2 pieces together, I just used a little bit of Scotch tape on the back of them just to help when I was stapling it. And then I used my tiny attacher, and on some of them I did 2 staples on one side and 1 on the other, and then on some, I doubled up the staples on both sides, so that way it just kind of varied it a little bit, but I think it's a cute little detail for a background like this. And then as I completed each row, I just had to cut a little bit of excess off of the ends so that it would fit inside the frame. So as I was building the rows on this piece, I made sure too that I didn't line any of the seams up. So you can see how there's a seam in the center of that second row. So on the third row, I made sure that I staggered it just a bit so that it's kind of that bricklay pattern where the seams are kind of staggered a little bit. And I did the same thing on each row. I just added a little piece of Scotch tape, and then I used my tiny attacher to add some little staple details on each row. And I wasn't too worried about the color placement. I didn't mind if there was some back-to-back colors or anything like that. I just kind of started grabbing colors at random, and sometimes even on the longer rows when I was using more than 2 sticks, sometimes I would even put in 2 of the same color because I just wanted it to not really have a pattern. I wanted it to be pretty random. So this was pretty fun actually to create these little rows, and I just kept, you know, going down the whole frame. And then, like I said, I did have to trim some of the edges off just to make sure that it fit within the backing of the frame. To decorate the inside of this frame, I used some of these mini mums that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I just clipped a couple pieces off and wrapped the bottom with some jute twine to make it look like a little mini bouquet, and then I hot glued it into the center of the frame. Now, this picture you could take from fall to summer, or summer to fall rather, pretty easily. You don't really have to do much. You just have to kind of change the decorations that you have around the picture, not the actual picture itself. So the second project is pretty easy, and like I said, I wanted to save that canvas from the first project to use on this one, which this is going to come in really handy because I actually have a lot of these canvas pieces laying around because I always seem to use the frame and I never know what to do with the actual canvas. So for this one, I just took the excess off of the edges of the canvas, and then I started really crinkling it up and rolling it into a ball. The one side of this canvas material kind of has a coating on it. So when you roll it up like this, it really kind of cracks it and makes it look weathered and distressed. And this is something, I mean, if you wanted to, you could even add some ink or some paint to it to really give it a weathered look, but I decided just to wrinkle it up and use it how it is. So I took one of these square glass candle holders from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just kind of smashing the canvas down over the bottom of it. And then I added a little bit of hot glue to the bottom and put it back on and kind of smash it down to kind of give it that paper bag effect, I guess. Then to keep this really simple, I just took some jute twine and I wrapped it around the center of the glass jar a few times, and it really helped cinch that canvas around the glass jar. And once I had the jute in place, I just took the same jute cord that I used to wrap around the edges and I doubled it up and I created just a simple shoelace style bow, and I glued that onto the front of the jar. To decorate this piece for summer, I just added in a few of the quartz river rock that I found at Michael's, I think, and a few pieces of succulent. And then to transition it into fall, I took the rocks out and I added in some pine cones and some little mini pumpkins that I already had in my stash. For the last project, I wanted to come up with an idea to use up some of these leftover flower stems because, again, this is another thing that I seem to hold on to in my stash, and I have a ton of them and I'm never sure what to do with them. So I took a couple bundles and I just clipped the thinner pieces off of the thicker part of the stem, and I'm only going to use the thin stems for this project. Next, I took some wired burlap ribbon that I had, and since there's wire on both sides, I decided to remove the wire from one of the sides of the ribbon, and I left the other side with the wire in. Then I took my scissors and I started just cutting fringes into the ribbon. And I'm cutting from the side where I took the wire out, and I'm cutting up to the wired side. And you can see here the fringes are probably about 1/8 of an inch wide, and I'm cutting up to within about 1/8 of an inch of the wired edge. And this piece of ribbon, I think I cut this about 18 inches long. So once I had all of the fringes cut out of the burlap ribbon, then I started by hot gluing it to the top of one of the stems. And whenever you start, you want to make sure that your fringes are facing up, and you just kind of pinch it onto the top of the stem there. And then I just started spiral wrapping it down towards the bottom of the stem. And that way all of the little fringy pieces that I had just cut were facing upwards and outwards. So it kind of created this really cool I don't know, I guess it's kind of like a feather, but it's also kind of like a fern shape. Like it just looks really neat. It's a cool little piece to add to things. And then once I got to the bottom, I wanted to keep about a ½ inch of the wire stem showing. So I hot glued it onto the bottom and just cut off the excess. And then I decided to try the same thing with some felt. So I'm using some navy blue felt here, and it's the same process. I just cut little 1/8 inch fringy pieces up to about 1/8 of an inch on the other side, hot glued at the top, and then went the whole way down. I took one of these I don't know what they're called, like willow wreaths or something from the Dollar Tree. And you can see here that I created a few of the navy blue pieces, and then it's showing on camera like it's kind of a reddish color, but it's actually more of a camel color. And I kind of layered all 3 of those, the 2 felt ones and the burlap ribbon one, onto the bottom of this wreath. And then for summer, I added in some greenery towards the center, and I actually used the wire piece that I took out of the ribbon to attach it. By the way, I didn't use any hot glue on this wreath, so that way I can remove all the pieces and redecorate it later on. So for the fall, I decided just to take the greenery out and add in a few fall leaves and a few little white clip-on pumpkins that I had found at the Dollar Tree last year. Here's a final look at all of the projects. You'll have to let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. I think my favorite is probably the first one. I really love the background of that piece. I loved using my mini stapler for that. Alright everyone, I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure you hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!